What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. This is the End to End NBA podcast, coming at you from a possibly hollow-sounding hotel room in Portland, Oregon, and you might also catch the sound of the train running directly beneath me, but just ignore that. Today, day after Thanksgiving, we got 9 a.m. basketball on right now. Life is good. Going to see the Blazers take on the Bulls at home tonight. Catch a little bit of that mellow return action. Should be a great time. But today I just wanted to jump into the kind of the new rule changes, the ideas that are moving forward, that have moved forward. I really didn't think that it was going to catch on this quickly and get off to the Board of Governors after going to the Players Union. And some of the things are still a little vague, and same with the playoff. The changing of the playoff stuff is kind of secondary. They want to do it, but I don't know if that'll come a little later. Ultimately, without really getting into much of it and dissecting it that much, it's a good time to strike right now, I think, with this, because of the kind of the lull in viewership, which I'm really surprised every time since the numbers have come out and I've been hearing about it. And I know that there's different things like you got to account for streaming and things like that. And that stuff, the way that they get those numbers isn't 100% yet. But either way, to hear that viewership is down in where the league is the healthiest it's been in a really long time as a whole, and you don't have, top heavy end with the Warriors and Cavs, it comes as a huge surprise to me. There's no other way to put it. It's just very, very surprising. So if this is a PSA here, like, get into it, man. This is the time to get in on this and understand who's where and what's going on, because we're back to where the NBA needs to be and should be, and where it's very enjoyable night in and night out. Like, if you told me that the Wizards were going to be a fun team to watch, or the Hornets were going to be a fun team to watch this year, I'd tell you you're out of your mind. But those statements are true. If you on league, like, they're great games. They're competitive in almost every single game. There have not been a lot of unwatchable basketball games this year, and I think a lot of people are missing out on that, and should definitely take. It's one of the shortest sports. It takes 2 to 2.5 hours, if that, to watch a game, and even that, you don't have to watch the first half to get the whole feel of the game. Anyways, that's off on a different tangent there, but ultimately back to the idea of changing things around to dropping it to 78 games, -4 games, adding a mid-season tournament that I don't know what the prize is for that yet. I would imagine it has something to do with draft picks and how that works out, which I think would be incredible. Like, at least roll it out and give it a chance. The more of that NCAA tournament feel that you could bring to the NBA, which I do think you can do, especially since, like, your talent now seems to be coming in at such a young baseline and really taking hold with a Doncic, with a Trae Young, even with a Bagley and a De'Aaron Fox. Like, there's something about guys like this that it's just super exciting. So keep that. Like, we don't need to watch 82 games and just wait. Let's plug something in there in the middle that grabs your interest, that's for something way down the line, and then you jump right back into the regular season where you go, oh yeah, now they're still playing for playoff position. So, like, I think it's a win-win. I think you're going to get a lot of pushback from the old guard, like a lot of pushback. We're talking about the same guys that say that, the Warriors wouldn't last a single playoff series back in the 80s or the 70s. And you're just like, well, no shit, dude. Come on. Like, the get off my lawn thing, it just doesn't work anymore. Like, you guys got to punch each other in the face while you're playing basketball. Like, that's not, I mean, to me, that's not real basketball. Basketball is this lovely hybrid of finesse and physicality and seeing the play before it happens and positioning and it's a beautiful game, and it deserves to be beautiful. It doesn't deserve to be mucked up with just ridiculously hard fouls and over the top things trying to literally knock somebody out of the game. Like, take your ass over to the NFL Network if you want some archaic, gladiator type stuff. And so with that being said, the old guard will push back on this as much as they can, but I think you've got the right guy in Adam Silver running the charge here, where it's time to move forward and it's time to expand the game, and it's gonna take hold because the young whatever you want to call it, the young group that's into soccer, that's into these tournament style things, that doesn't mind different stuff, it's gonna work. It might take a few years to really catch on. It might even take some league expansion at some point to maybe add some more teams into this. But I think ultimately it's going to be really good, and it's going to help grow the league in a big, just different way. And we're going to look back and it'll be great. It'll just be great. You had the ABA NBA merger. You'll have the date, whenever it is, that the first midseason NBA tournament was played for draft order, or however they come about it, whatever they end up doing, I do trust that it will be good. I don't think we're talking about people that have millions and billions of dollars in their interest. So I think they're going to probably make the best decision, for the entire league. And so far they've done a really good job across the years. So that's kind of all I've got on that. I was going to go off on Van Gundy and I think it was Caron Butler on NBA TV the other day, just kind of saying that they didn't want to see with the playoff seeding idea that you would go 9 or 10 seeds deep but also get rid of the conferences. Like the 9th and 10th seeds, they ebb and flow. Like some years, I looked back 5-6 years deep, they're not always the greatest teams. Like they're really below 500, and their numbers are just kind of, you wouldn't want. It would almost be a bona fide 4-game sweep if they played the number 1 seed. But then again, there's other times where it's not like that at all, and you get teams like Sacramento or Charlotte or Detroit. I think the Nets were in there one year where they're feisty. They're 500. I think the Bulls also were in there one year. Like a team that you probably wouldn't want to play. The T-Wolves even. Like you're telling me that if you put Karl Anthony Towns in a 7-game series, or even if you make that first series 5 games, the first round, like it's Karl Anthony Towns. Anything can happen. Are you going to win three games? The odds are against you, but what you're banking on is that once in every 3, 4, 5 years that team pulls it off. And that's what you're doing it for, because there is that little chance that they're going to push through. It's the same thing with the 16-1 in the NCAA tournament. I think there's a lot of parallels that you can draw to that with the way that they're trying to shake this out. Is we need more drama and more possibility for crazy things to happen. Really quick, I selfishly just want to get into this, 2 minutes here on this. The Donic-Harden matchup from last weekend. Just watching a team like the Mavericks, who might be just as understaffed in the ancillary player, bench role guy, at just as much as Houston, but to see the way that Doncic can involve his teammates and still get it's a thing of beauty. And I know Harden is an incredible scorer. He's going to go down as one of the greatest scorers of all time. I say it time and time again, but it just doesn't work the way that I don't think that they should be talked about as any kind of playoff threat or anything probably ever again. Like, did they have a shot when they were pushing on the Warriors because of the way that the style that the Warriors played with? Yes, but now that that's gone, I don't think that they can compete with anybody, let alone in a 7-game series. They'll win some games just off of the pure volume that they shoot. Like, Harden scores so much because he shoots so damn much. Like, it's not very hard to figure out. And if you can take away everything else and let Harden get his 40, you're going to win. You're going to beat him. You have to have an incredible night from Russ. You have to have one of those one-off nights from Capella. PJ Tucker's got to shoot 45% from those corners 3 shots. Like, Austin Rivers has to play out of his mind. Like, you're asking so much, and I really think we saw it on display. Doncic looks like a winning version of Harden to me. He looks like a what Harden can't do, really. And I guess that's no knock to Harden, because Harden's really just a 2-guard that can shoot the lights out, but he needs a better team around him. He needs to be, I'm not going to go as far to say that he's the second best player on a championship team, because that's pushing it, because he is so good. But he needs something. There's some other ingredient that up until this point has always been missing in his career. Now, if OKC would have stayed together, could that have been special? Could that have even worked once they all got to the levels that they're at now? Probably not, because you can't pay all those guys. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I reveled in watching that and seeing kind of some of my dislike for the way that Houston rolls and seeing how it works with a guy like Doncic and how young Doncic is. And yeah, I'm just smitten by him and what he's going to bring to the NBA. I mean, he is the future. He's got MVP written all over him for the next in the coming years here as the torch kind of passes. But, to quote LeBron James, he's a bad motherfucker. So yeah, just a quick aside on that. I went over my 2-minute mark. So let's get into what are we doing here now? Playoff teams, frisky playoff teams, or playoff teams that still have a puncher's chance. Let's put it that way. Teams that are probably under 500, still kind of floating outside in the 9, 10, 11 spots. Which, for the sake of discussion in the time of the podcast, I picked 1 team in the East and 3 in the West. The East just being, I just really I wanted to spend a good amount of time on the Wizards here. So we'll get into it as per usual, just jumping in. I like the Wizards. They're such a weird, they're the pinnacle here of the title of this. They have a puncher's chance. Like, they have one of the worst rebounding and defensive teams in the league. It is unbelievable. They toe both sides of the spectrum, the worst defensive team and one of, if not the most potent offensive teams. They lead the league in assists. These are team stats. Lead the league in assists. They're 6th in free throw percentage and 3-point percentage, respectively, which is saying something. As a team, shooting free throws like that, fantastic. And then you've got tied for first in field goal percentage and tied for first in points per game. But all in the low 20s, 3rd to last, 5th to last in rebounding, blocks, and steals. They do not get the ball back. They do not get the ball off of turnovers. They don't score off of turnovers. So they are just boat racing teams and hoping that that's enough to win these games. And ultimately that lands you at 6-10 with a lot of close losses, but where you're up in the 140, 130 range. And so ultimately, they have a puncher's chance. I don't know if it's sustainable to do something like this. It kind of, I'm likening this to my point with the Suns, and we've seen the Suns kind of come back down to earth now. They had some of the worst rebounding numbers in the league, and they were shooting the lights out, and that came to a stop almost right when I cut that part of the podcast a few episodes ago. It was really interesting that happened like that. that the sustainability factor came in to where you can't shoot nearly 60% as a team for that long. It just doesn't work that way. It's so hard to do that, especially with the guys that you have. No knock on them, but it's just, you don't see that very often sustained for 20 games even, like, let alone an entire season. So can the Wizards continue this ridiculous shooting spree? I don't think so, but the offense is there. Can they mold the defense by the All-Star break and start winning some close games? And then in the West, I really like the Pelicans, of course. I think they're one of the easier teams, them and the Kings, but we'll start with the Pelicans. And the idea that Zion at this point, now that they've kind of settled in, they were reeling on the defensive end for the first part of the year, and that's to be expected with a young team, and these guys haven't played at all together. So I wasn't really shocked. I'm happy to see that they were able to get back to a point where they could get, where they didn't just let it overwhelm them. That is a very good sign to me that they were able to weather that storm and get back into the thick of things, because they're right back where they need to be. They struggle they struggle with some firepower sometimes, it seems like, even though they're scoring really well, it just seems like they're one guy away. And luckily that guy for them is freaking Zion Williamson. You know, it's not like they're waiting for Ramon Sessions or Elfrid Payton or, you know, just a bench guy to come back. It's the future. It's the number 1 overall draft pick waiting just to get healthy and come back. And he might be that just absolute, more than a spark plug, man. We're talking about freaking M80 or something. Like, he's if he comes back and he's 100% healthy and they just turn him loose, the mixture between Ingram, I love Josh Hart's 3-point expansion, just that he's become such a good, reliable 3-point shooter. I think they're bringing, the defense is coming around in a big way. I think they've got a big shot to make the playoffs, and that's really exciting for a team like New Orleans. To jump over to Sacramento, they're kind of the same thing. I mean, no Bagley for the last almost 3 weeks now. He's an incredible offensive player. No De'Aaron Fox. Like, there just hasn't been enough chance to have cohesion. You got a new coach in there, new system. Like, they're too good not to be able to figure it out and put it together. Would I have liked to see them sign Bogdanović? Yes, but I also think you're getting that contract year play from him where he doesn't really care. I mean, he wants to win games, but he's playing for himself and for his future and for his money, which ultimately helps you this year. So maybe it's a smart play by Divox. Like, if he's thinking that far ahead, kudos to him. But one way or the other, you're getting a fantastic season out of him. And once you get Fox back and Bagley, I think you're going to be in incredible shape for a push here come, post All-Star break, which is really, if you can turn it on there and you can win 3/4 of your games and hold just, I think you can be in good shape, especially if they're just treading around 500. They will be okay, as the Suns and the Timberwolves, I think, can be had at the bottom of that, at the bottom of the Western Conference, and it should be fun come the end of the year when we're shaking the 7th and 8th seed out. So my third team, or I guess it would be my fourth team, would be the Portland Trail Blazers, who just seem like they're a weird one to figure out because there's so much veteran presence there between McCollum and Lillard and even Whiteside. Like, it seems like it's a good NBA team. They're missing depth and they're missing athleticism at the 4 and the 5. And that's a big issue. It's really because Lillard and McCollum have to do, you got to get up big and you got to cross your fingers that, that the lead's not going to slip away from you when the second unit comes in. A lot of teams are just banging them down low because they can't, Melo, bless his soul, like he's coming in and doing more than what we thought he was going to do. And he looks hungry, and I'm glad I didn't sell all my stock in him when he came in. I was just a little hesitant to say that he's gonna, average 15 plus, but at this point he looks like a guy that can average 15 plus, and that's awesome. It's great for the league. It's great to have Melo back. I love listening to him yell off Hassan for rebounds. Get the F out of here. I got it, Hassan. Like, check that out if you haven't seen it. It's something. I'm going to the Blazers game tonight, so it's going to be great if I can hear that up from my great seats in the 300 section. But it's a great story, but he's just not enough. And we had already talked about like that he's not there to be the savior. He's helping for 100%. Like they can outscore teams, especially some of the younger teams. They did it to the Bulls the other night in Chicago. They did it to the Thunder. Like that part of it's working, but when they go up against teams with like real good size and real athleticism, they're going to get worked down low, and that could ultimately be their downfall. The way that I see them turning this thing around, what I came up with is they're going to win games with just pure gamesmanship, with pure savvy and veteran ability, where they, like it's almost like the Lakers. The Lakers don't have the most talented. You look up and down on the box score or on the roster sheet, like, and you go, how in the world is their record so good? Like, how are they doing this? And it's just because they're smart and they know how to play. They know, coaching is phenomenal. Now they're playing ridiculously good defense. I don't know if the Blazers, like, no matter what, McCollum and Lillard are never going to be your 1 and 2 guard defensive stoppers ever. It's just not going to happen. That's probably where the problem lies, is the defense and the rebounding, and then again the second unit, and then I guess lastly they're just overall size. You're missing Zach Collins. Even when you get Nurkic back, we've talked about this before, you're not going to get 100%. If he hasn't been on the court with an injury like that, we saw what it did to Hayward. You're not getting him where you need him. Can he be of use? Probably, but it's still not going to be ideal. And same with Collins coming off of a huge surgery. It's showing big time that you're missing the athleticism and the oomph from guys like Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu. And I never thought I'd say that you'd be missing guys like that, but you need guys like that, I guess, glue guys that are going to dive for the ball in the court, guys that are going to draw good fouls, guys that are going to commit good fouls. It's something that you need, and it's something that is missing in a big way for the Blazers. So it'll be super interesting to see that a team with that much talent, with 2 bona fide all-stars and a future Hall of Famer in Carmelo Anthony, if they don't make the playoffs, I think we see a lot of change and maybe the end for Terry Stotts. I hate to say that, but because he's one of my favorite coaches, and I think he's a fantastic coach. But if you can't win with these guys, that's saying something. And then just to close it out really quick, got to touch on LeBron being one of the 4th player to join the 33,000 point club, and he only needs 3 years, a little less than 3 years, at around 1,900 points to ultimately become number 1. I would put all my money on that number without a doubt, especially with AD around. I don't think it's going to be pretty easy for him to average somewhere in the realm of 20 to 25 points for the rest of his career, really. And I think we're still one evolution away of the king. I think he's got one more kind of move that he's going to make, just in the style of play that he does to preserve his body. I think he's 5-6 years away from retiring, honestly. They'll get guys in even around once they clear cap space in the coming years and things like that. Like, his reign is far, far from over, and he'll consistently let us know about that. When he does ultimately get to number one, I think the argument becomes even bigger for, is he the greatest player of all time? One of the most dominant stretches. I know, I understand that the rings are spotty. That will always be what pulls the argument one way or the other, because of the Jordan factor, because of the Celtics factor, and Bill Russell, and just all those factors, and that's a huge argument, and that's a lot to get into. But I think it puts him really close. Without getting into it too much, it puts him right there where it's worth the argument. And he's going to force it. He's going to force the issue. He's one of the greatest players of all time, and it's been absolutely fascinating to watch across the years. I mean, the three-pointer that put him over 33,000 points was over Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes was 3 years old when LeBron entered the league. So I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you for tuning in to episode 17 of the End-to-End NBA podcast. This podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everywhere in between that you can get a podcast. There is a YouTube page up now. This will be up there shortly after. I'm going to look to get some more content rolling on that. Check out End to End on Instagram, where I put up a lot of other content and just kind of get the discussion of the NBA going. It's a lot of fun up there. Check out the stories. Usually try to make them a little interactive with voting and such. And in the meantime, catch yourself some weekend basketball. There's 13 games on for Black Friday. Thank you all for listening. Again, this has been the End to End NBA podcast. I'm your host, Joe Golden. Y'all take care.